So if you can just share that with your stream, and then we can get started.
Mm-hmm. In fact, I see that it's still locked.
You have to refresh your page.
Yeah. Refreshing?
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, so I want to share this.
And then okay. Good morning, Elaine. How are you?
Hi there. I'm good.
You're going to stick with us, right?
Going to try.
Okay, so we're going to get started. Everybody please mute your mic.
And Shara.
Hi.
I don't know the lady with Mashable in the background.
Meghen.
Hi, I'm Meghen.
Hi, Meghen.
You're going to get to know her very quickly. So everybody please mute your mics. And I am going to...
Shara. Hi.
Say that.
Hey. Okay, if you're not going to mute it, I'll mute it for you. Okay, and let's get started. Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Ifat, your G+GoTo gal. And today in What's Your Story is Meghen Peters from Mashable. She's a community manager. And I actually met Meghen at South by Southwest when she was on a panel with Daria Mask and I'm going to mispronounce his name, Escobar, something, right, Meghen?
Esteban Contreras.
Meghen, you're muted, so you need to unmute yourself.
Sorry.
Yes, and TJ Marchetti.
Okay.
Yes, much better.
Okay.
And so Meghen was generous enough to agree to come and tell us talk about her job and who she is and how she got to where she is today as the community manager of Mashable. So let's start with you telling us just what brought you to where you are today.
Yeah. So I came to Mashable.
Okay.
Still? Sit.
Yes.
Oh. Now you can? No.
Yes.
Sorry, hang on.
That's okay, you're good. We can hear you.
Is that better or?
Perfect.
Okay. Good deal. Yeah, so I started at Mashable about 1.5 years ago. But before that, I was actually living in Seattle, where I was working as a digital journalist at the Seattle Times. And there, I did a lot of web production and was making the site and picking up news from the web and presenting it on the site. But that's really when I got into social media, and I was running the Twitter and Facebook accounts for the sports page there, and that was really fascinating and really cool community to work with. And I decided that I wanted to do a lot more than that, and I heard about the Mashable opportunity, and it just kind of came to that. And the job that I had before the Seattle Times was in marketing at Microsoft, and that I think was a really good experience because I feel like kind of what I'm doing now is a really good mix of what I was doing at Microsoft and then what I was doing at the Seattle Times, because it's like you need to understand the idea of marketing and spreading your message, but you also need, doing community management for a news company, you need to have good news judgment and to understand what a story is and be able to anticipate how people will react to it, and from there also how you can help shape the conversation and engage people around a certain current event.
So that's very interesting.
Yeah. So
many interesting facts there, actually, but the first one that jumped to my head is you're a woman and you're doing sports. What type of sports were you reporting?
Yeah. So I was doing all different types. I was mostly just doing things on the web, so less actual beat reporting, but more helping the other reporters like kind of maintain their blogs and tweeting out their stories and things like that. So it was everything from like high school sports was really big in that region. So like high school football was always huge to like Seattle doesn't have a basketball team anymore, unfortunately, but college basketball was huge and college football as well. And then the Seattle Seahawks were huge every year, and then the Mariners in the summer were the baseball team. So it was really all sports, but it just depended on the season and the point of year which ones I was working with. But I did a little bit of everything since I wasn't stuck to one certain beat, which I loved personally. I thought it was great. Got a really good experience.
That's very. Do you have any favorite sports that you liked?
Yeah, well, I guess for me, I was always a soccer player, and Seattle got a soccer team, not long before I started the Seattle Times, so that was super exciting to be able to work with them and keep up on that news because, yeah, like Seattle turned into actually a huge soccer town once the team came, and, yeah, people just love, it's the Seattle Sounders, and people love them out there, so, yeah, I would go to the games pretty frequently, and I always loved that. I think that was probably my favorite sport that I got to be involved in coverage with.
That's my favorite too.
Yeah.
And so how do you really, like what you were saying, you need to find out what the real story is and what a story is in general,
yeah.
How to record that and run the conversation. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing to keep in mind when you're looking for a story or considering a pitch for a story is how many people that topic affects. So, for example, like a lot of what I would do there was actually moving around different stories on the homepage and putting their placement to be in order of best importance. So importance is basically how many people it affects, or how many people are talking about it, or might benefit or need to hear about it for whatever reason. So I think like a really good example is there was a story about how some research came out about like certain ideas we have, I think, about breast cancer were totally debunked by some research story that came out. And that's a disease that affects a lot of people in our world. So that was the top story of the day, whereas something like a movie review, even though, yeah, that's timely and it's coming out maybe the next day or in a couple of days, it isn't, you kind of have more of a niche entertainment crowd, whereas something like breast cancer is really everyone, because, either, someone in your family has it, or you might have it, or chances are someone who knows someone who has it. So you have to kind of think about it like that. But then of the same token, being in Seattle and covering local news, like even if it isn't a national story like, something with cancer, it could also be something local where like a huge, statewide bill just passed that really affects the university's education budget or something. And that could also be a top story because that's, all the taxpayers' money in that region that's being affected and how it's being used. And there also is, if it's a university of 40,000 people where a large portion of the state sends their children, that could, have a huge effect on also a large portion, maybe even not all across the country or the world, but in that region.
Would you get your stories from press releases that were sent to you, or would you go out and look for the stories?
Sometimes it's press releases, but a lot of times it's going out and looking for stories. Or even, there's so many places you can find stories, even just having a conversation with someone and hearing things that they're interested in or questions they ask or connections they might have that, might be an interesting person to interview. There's definitely lots of different ways stories come out.
How does it work in Mashable right now? How do you guys get your stories?
Yeah, for us, some of it is press releases that come into our inbox, but a lot of times, we're all very much into social media, so especially because it's a huge coverage area for us, so we have people who are just monitoring like Twitter, Facebook, Google+, even like Pinterest and all these various sites, looking out for stories and seeing what people are talking about, understanding what's at top of mind for everyone on the web helps to give us some direction as to, what the news of the day is, because what people are talking about or what they're interested in, and that's what we want to hit on.
And so you're using all the social media aspects, Twitter, Facebook, Google+, and you are now being featured by Google, right, as one of the companies that is using Google+, with the best practice.
Yeah.
So can you tell us how Mashable is using Google+, and what does it do for your company? Like in what ways you're using it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we got on Google+ like from the get-go. It was something that we really wanted to be on, and we wanted to experiment with the community. The thing we found very early on with Google+ is it's very engaging, and people really, really like to have discussions. Of course, Hangouts are a great example of that. Like, we've done a couple with some of our reporters, and they've been fascinating. To me, a Hangout is really the deepest kind of engagement you can get on social media. We had a great one a couple months ago where a reporter was on. She was actually talking about carrier IQ, and that was a big deal a couple months ago, and kind of educating people about it, because a lot of people didn't really understand exactly what the issue was, and it was, basically about being tracked on your mobile phone, them having these inherent devices that could do that, and people were freaked out by it, but they also didn't really understand what it meant or how they could figure out if it was an issue for them. So she got on talking about this, and then someone that was in the Hangout actually happened to be an expert on the topic, and it sort of almost became like a very fluid conversation between them, where they together were almost really like educating other people and relaying this information that actually ended up turning out into a follow-up interview that she used for another story on the site, like interviewing this guy. So things like that don't happen on all social sites. Like, that was a really cool way that we got to use Google+. And we've also, we post our stories, of course, but sometimes we also crowdsource. Like, it's a really good tool for that. The other day when Gmail was down, we asked folks, what their experience was like, and kind of took a little survey and got some information from their experiences to be able to piece together like a story was.
Come back.
Like how the problem might affect you.
So do you find that you get more of the news from Google+, or like Twitter, that is more kind of like a newsy medium?
Yeah, I think personally I find a lot of news from Twitter, but I think that the thing about the news I find from Google+ is that it's always different. And I really like that. There are things that get posted here that I would never come across on Twitter. And I think I know even like photos and videos, I feel like are just so much easier to see in the format of Google+. So I tend to watch a lot more really interesting videos from Google+ than I would for Twitter. But Twitter, I'd say I probably find most of the articles that I like to read.
It's interesting. Can you tell me what a day in the life of Meghen Peters is like?
Oh, man. Oh, that's a hard question because it's different every day. But I guess I'd say, I come to the office and we look at, what's going on and considering what the top news of the day is. We all always get together at noon and have a meeting to kind of go over what performed well the day before and how we can do better the next day, and what types of stories we want to have an eye on, what people are talking about, what trends we're seeing overall is really important. But yeah, it could be, I think the most interesting thing about my job is that I really span all departments here. So yes, I work really closely with editorial and finding the news, but on any given day I could also be helping our events and marketing team to set up a Twitter fall of like tweets and Instagram photos for our next event that people can look at when they come in. Or I could be talking to our sales team about, selling a contest package to an advertiser and how we would engage our readers on the site. Or I could be, really working with like any like number of people here on any given day, which is what I really like, because I really enjoy, kind of helping to bring things together. And I think the thing about community is that we really understand what our audience likes, who they are, and, how we can engage with them and tap into them and, use them as a resource, but also provide more utility for them. So that really affects everyone at our company, because we're so community first. We really care about, making sure our goals are in line with what our readers come to us for. So I'd say like I get pulled in a lot just to let people know, what the Mashable readers are talking about and, how we can make the most of it.
Do you find that you have different communities on different networks, that your community on Google Plus is different from your Facebook one and your Twitter one?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Like our Google Plus community is definitely, they really, whenever we post stories on Google Plus, we try to focus on posting like opinion pieces or very kind of like thought out kind of analysis pieces. And it's like when we post something to Google Plus, people want to see like our analysis of it, and then maybe they'll read it and tell us what they think of it. So we can't really just post like one sentence or a couple words as a prompt. It's like they want to see almost a couple paragraphs sometimes of what we think about it and basically why it's important to us before they decide that it's important enough for them to take their time to read and then respond to, which is really fascinating. But definitely a really smart community on Google Plus that's, saying a lot of interesting things and has some really cool response. But yeah, like Twitter is definitely different. Our Twitter community loves to share. Like we get tons of retweets, like way more than most accounts, or accounts that I know, like friends I have who work on other big media accounts. Facebook, our audience there is, in general, I think Facebook is just a lot more mainstream. So we try to post stories there that are applicable to like a wider audience, I guess. Whereas, something like Google Plus, we can talk about that topic, like Carrier IQ, how we did the Hangout. Whereas on Facebook, a story like that might not do as well because people there aren't as into tech where they would know like what that story is about as much.
So let me ask you, how it sounds like you never send the same story to all the networks. You basically modify the story, and sometimes you're not even sending the same story to all of them.
Yeah, so we, especially with Google Plus and with Facebook, if we post too much, we get really negative feedback. So we can't post all our stories there because we publish, probably between 50 and 70 stories a day sometimes at the high range. So that, we can put all of them out on Twitter because people are used to their streams moving really quickly and, the feed doesn't bother them. But on Google Plus, I'd say we post a maximum of probably 5 stories a day, whereas with Facebook, it's probably a little bit more than that, maybe like 10 stories a day. So it's, it kind of depends on what's going on at the moment, but yeah, we do try to, even if we were to post the same story to Facebook, Twitter, and Google+, the prompts would all be different, so we'd post them in different ways. And I think that that's a smart thing for a community manager to do no matter what platform or what brand they're working with. Because, a good example is like if you were to put out a tweet on Google+ and you had @handle mentions, like those don't translate to Google+ because it's not the community, it's not the functionality of the site. So it makes more sense to modify it so that it would look proper in the stream, like be what people are expecting to see.
So when Google Plus started and you're one of the first beta testers, basically, right? When you got here, did you bring your community here with you, or did you cultivate a community from within Google Plus?
That's a good question. I think it was a little bit of both. I think also we were pretty big on Google Buzz before that was done away with. So I think that a lot of that community transferred. But I think Google Plus also, clearly became much bigger than Google Buzz. So I think that because Google Plus built a whole new community, we were definitely able to tap into those folks and, share with them what we were sharing and, build a huge community from that. But that said, I do think that our audience is very much an early adopter type where they see the new tool coming out and they want to be one of the first ones on it. So I'd say in that sense we did have a lot of people who, were already reading us that, came with us to Google+, but they might also be following us on Twitter or on Facebook, which is another way we actually use to build community on all these different platforms as we cross-promote. So we might put out a tweet that says, hey, we're on Google+, add us to your circles, which can help us get a few folks who follow us on Twitter to also follow our updates on Google+, which is pretty cool. And it's definitely an effective way to build communities.
When Google started in beta, they didn't have brand pages. And you came into Google Plus as a company. So did you have one person representing Mashable with a personal profile and then switch to a brand page? What was the strategy behind that?
Yeah, so that's what we did. We're very fortunate that our CEO, Pete Cashmore, is a very recognizable face. So we used his profile it wasn't really even us. He was actually doing the updating because it was his and we weren't going to, go into his account. But he really liked the platform and would do a lot of that analysis right on Google+, and he was able to gain a pretty big following really quickly. And that was really cool to see. And, we just kept an eye on it. We would engage with people who were responding to his analysis to, build community around Mashable and let them know that, we worked with Pete at Mashable and we wanted to respond with them and hear more about what they were saying. So, yeah, that was a cool experience, but we were definitely very glad to have the brand pages launch because it's been a lot easier for us to manage and just nice for people to be able to connect with the brand. A lot of people are still connecting with Pete, which is great, but it's nice to get people excited about the brand as well.
And so how did you move people from personal profiles to start following Mashable, the brand itself?
Yeah, so we definitely did a lot of messaging where Pete would share the profile, and at first, he would do less of his own posting and directly share the posts from the Mashable page onto his page to try to get folks to migrate over there. And then we did a lot of marketing on the site as well. We also write about Google Plus a lot from the news perspective. So, in our posts, we would sort of have in-house ads to let people know that we were on Google Plus, and that was really effective. Because, if you're on that page reading an article about Google Plus, chances are you're on Google Plus yourself and might want to get more updates like that from Mashable. So that was really helpful. But yeah, I'd say that also in addition to Pete, we also had a lot of other staff members who had gained large followings on Google Plus. So they were essential in spreading the word as well about the brand page.
So I know you told me you love quotes. What's your favorite one?
Oh, my favorite quote. What is it? I gotta pull up my Pinterest now because all I do is pin quotes to Pinterest boards. I think my favorite one is work hard, stay humble. I think that's a really good one. I'm pretty sure that's a Steve Jobs quote. But yeah, I feel like if that could be my mantra every day, then life is kind of better, not just for myself, but for all around me as well. So that's important.
Humble allows you to connect with people better, right? So
Yeah, that too.
it's a good thing. If anyone today that you know is considering entrepreneurship today, do you have any words of advice for them?
Entrepreneurship, I think that being an entrepreneur is so much about risk management and knowing when to dive in head first and when to kind of, maybe test the waters a little bit more. And, your judgment gets better with that with experience. But, I think that, you need to be fast, but you also need to do your research and make sure you understand all sides of a venture before you get into it. I think one thing that worked really well for Mashable when Pete started it in 2006 is that he had been watching the space from the very beginning, and it was really risky at first that, he started writing about things like Twitter and Facebook, and people would even say, like, why are you doing that? Like, that's not going to be a thing. Like, they're just networks where people are, like, talking to their friends or posting pictures from parties. And, he stuck with it. And it took a while. He really, really had to put some time in. And I think that was really key as well, having that patience to be able to see it through, because it wasn't really until maybe like 2 or 3 years in that he really started to see a lot of success and gain some serious traction to the point where, he's been able to grow the company to be, we have nearly 70 employees now, and headquarters in New York and an office in San Francisco. So it's really turned into something big, but it took a lot of patience and perseverance and time.
We were talking about how, when something is very successful, the media always talks about an overnight success. And an overnight success takes about 10 years.
That happens very rarely, yeah. Even like, I feel like even something like Instagram could be argued as an overnight success, but in reality, that took 1.5 years. And that's not a lot of time, but it's also not the next day. So, yeah.
And actually, you're talking about Pete. Pete is very much, I would say, an innovator, but you can see kind of like the future, because Mashable, a lot of companies still today are not in Google+. And
yeah, that's true.
There, right? When it was still beta and not available to the public.
Yeah, that was really important for us to be on there at the beginning. And it definitely was a risk, because it could have been a complete failure, and we could have put tons of time and effort into promoting our presence and to updating our page, without much benefit. But it ended up working out because Google Plus has, built a large user base, and it does have a lot of power behind it. And like at the same time, I think that getting on there right away was really beneficial, because being one of the first ones, we were able to, I think it was easier to build a larger community because, with there being less people and less brands on it, we had less competition, I guess, in that sense. So that was definitely a good thing. But at the same time, kind of how I was saying, like, being able to see like all points and have a well-rounded view of what you're getting yourself into was important for us. And we had seen Google's ventures into social before. We had done plenty of stories about Google's plan for the future and like where they saw everything going, and with how much they were investing in Google Plus, we felt like it was a safe decision to also invest in it, because it wasn't something that was going to be launched and then completely abandoned. We knew they were planning to grow it and continue developing it. And, we knew that we could keep up with them on that.
So can you tell me, how do you build the community on Google+? How do you, do you engage with them? Do you reach out and find new people? What do you do to maintain a community?
Yeah. I'd say in terms of building community, we do a lot of different things. A lot of it is just having interesting posts that people want to share with their own networks and sort of getting that viral effect, that's really important to us. But also the cross-promotion is pretty key for us as well, in terms of, like getting our Twitter followers to also follow us in Google Plus and vice versa. So there's a lot of different ways, but I mean, I think that just really posting articles or starting conversations through Hangouts or whatever it may be is really key for us in terms of the building community, because, when we ask a question and someone responds, then we actually get to know who those people are. So it's not, so a lot of times people use the word community and it could mean something very vague. But for us, like, it's really about getting to know this audience and, having a two-way conversation so that they feel just as invested in, our brand and our mission as we are in them and their interactions with us.
Do you do also community building activities, kind of like competitions and you do?
We do.
What's the best one that worked well for you, like a good competition or activity?
I think one that I've really liked that we've been doing, we started actually a weekly feature. It's called our Weekly Photo Challenge, where we give our community a different topic every week and have them go out and take pictures of whatever it is. So a couple weeks ago when Instagram first launched for Android, the topic was first. So we left that up to anyone's interpretation. If you want that to be your first Instagram picture on your Android, if you want that to be, your first baby coming home from the hospital, if you want it to be your first time in Maui, whatever it be. And we got really, really interesting interpretations and just tons of submissions. And then we did a roundup gallery with some of the best ones, and that was a really cool project. But we've been doing, so then the week after that we did progressions, and now we've launched a new one just this week, actually today. That's the topic is green, so that could be anything from maybe like an eco-friendly system that you have to just a day in the park or whatever it be. So that one's been really, really cool, and people really, really like to get involved with that one.
Do you find that different type of competition work on different networks? So, for example, pictures would work better in Google Plus, and something else would work better on Twitter?
Yeah, definitely. Google Plus is really important for pictures. Videos do really well on Google Plus as well. Similar to Facebook, pictures do phenomenally on Facebook. Videos do okay on Facebook, but not as, pictures are just amazing there. And I'd say it also depends on, it really depends on what audience is on what platform, what does well. So for example, if we have a post about maybe something job or more business related, we'll put it on LinkedIn, and usually it'll perform very well there. Whereas kind of our more offbeat news or really striking visuals tend to do well on a network like StumbleUpon. So it really just depends on the content and what audience is there to receive it.
It sounds like what you're trying to do is really to get viral and shares. Did you figure out what triggers the viral?
It's always a combination of things. Timing is really, really important. I think a really good example is around the Super Bowl, there was this photo of Bill Belichick, the Patriots coach, kind of floating around the internet where he just, I don't know, it was after practice, and he just, kind of had this look on his face and, long, hard day of practice kind of a thing. And it was sort of started to circulate, so we invited our community to actually make it into a meme, and we provided a cutout image that they could use to paste on, wherever they wanted to put it, and layer their own wording over it to, just kind of poke fun at this guy. And we posted it, I think it was a day or two before the Super Bowl happened, so people just went nuts about it because that's all anyone was talking about at that moment was the Super Bowl. So it really gained traction, and that timing was just perfect. And also the tools that we were able to provide them, the fact that we actually could give them the picture to use made it a lot easier than if we just said, hey, do this, and then they had to go search for the picture themselves and then do all this stuff in Photoshop with the wording. Like, it just wouldn't have worked. So I think, yeah, timing, available tools, and sort of creative inspiration, because we also created our own as an example, and that kind of got people's wheels turning. So yeah, I'd say it's a mix of the timing and also the tools and examples you can provide.
I see I'm looking at your page, and I noticed there's a lot of responses to every one of your posts. And I'm kind of like scrolling through the comments, and I'm seeing where you guys enter in and engage in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very random. Do you have kind of like a system? Do you wait for people to talk? Do you just respond for some of them or none of them? Is there anything behind that?
I mean, I'd say, yeah, I can't say we necessarily have a strict method for that. I think for us it's just important that we are getting back to people. So if someone asks a question, we'll do our best to answer it. I'd say like questions are kind of what we get to first, and if there are no questions or we've answered them, then we'll try to respond to interesting comments. And I mean, even if it's just as simple as like, oh, thanks for your comment, that was really interesting perspective. Like, sometimes that's enough. I mean, at the end of the day, people just really want to know that someone's listening and that there's someone there on the other end to see that comment, so that they're not just kind of blindly throwing it into some sort of commenting abyss of the internet. So that's something that's really important for us and that we try to stay on top of, for sure.
I think that's actually what separates the successful brands on Google Plus from the unsuccessful ones, because I think this is a new way of really a two-way conversation, whereas the other networks, it's more kind of like a one-way. You send something out there and people share it and comment, but you don't really have the two-way conversation. And so it's really nice to see companies who are doing it well and are getting back to their users and talking to them. And it sounds like to get your attention, to get Mashable's attention, is ask a question and mention Mashable in the comments.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you want to be noticed on Mashable, that's what you have to do, guys. Tell me about yourself. What's the most influential time, person, or moment in your life that got you to where you are today?
Oh, man. Most influential time or moment. I guess, like, on a personal level, I find my sister really inspiring. I know that's kind of cheesy, but it's true. Like, I think the thing about working in social media is, like, sometimes you tend to get caught up in this world of the internet and what all these people are saying on the different networks, and it can be a little overwhelming at times. And also, you know, when you're living in the comments and just listening to people all day, you know, sometimes people say mean things, and, you know, it can be kind of tough. But, like, when I you know, talk to my sister about what happened in my day at work, like she's a nurse, so she's not even barely on a computer, and I mean, she's like dealing with some really difficult situations day in and day out. So when I tell her about what's going on with me, I mean, she really helps put it into perspective by saying, you know, if you screw up at work, yeah, you might have a couple of disgruntled Twitter followers. If I screw up at work, someone might die. So it's hard to think about it that way, but it's true, and I find that really inspiring, and that really helps me keep going, because it's, at the end of the day, like, the things that I'm doing, yes, they're important, and it's, you know, great to build community and to listen to all these conversations that are going on in real time, but at the same time, it's not a matter of life and death. And that's important to know.
Yeah, everything in perspective, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, actually, that's you know, Elaine, who just commented in the chat, just reminded me of another quote that I really like. I can't remember the exact wording, but it was something Francis Ford Coppola said to his kids, and it was something to the effect of, keep your work personal and you'll never get yourself caught up in a lie. And I think that that is really, really important, because it's, you know, staying humble and staying honest is so key. And if you really feel so strongly about your work that you treat it the same way you would, like a family situation or, hanging out with friends or whatever it be, then I think that you're much better off for it. And you're not going to get yourself into those lies because you care enough about it that you want to stay honest and you want to maintain respect.
My husband once told me, don't turn it into a religion. It's something
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's interesting. Sometimes you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's not my life.
Right. Absolutely.
What's your favorite book? Do you have time to read?
Oh, yeah. Actually, I know it's so silly, but I'm reading the Hunger Games book right now. Like, I always think that that's so silly when everyone's reading the same book, but finally my friend cracked on me because she was like, you have to read this so we can go see the movie. It's actually pretty good, but not up there with my favorites yet. I'd say my favorite, actually, I really like The Satanic Verses by Salman Rushdie. I found that really inspiring. And I'm also a huge Dave Eggers fan. He wrote a heartbreaking work of staggering genius, and that's one of my favorites. I've read a couple of other books of his as well, and I think that he's just phenomenal.
What accomplishment in your career or in your life right now you're most proud of?
Accomplishment I'm most proud of. That's a good question. I'd say I've been really proud of what I've done at Mashable because I've been able, like, as the company has grown, I've been able to, come into a management role and actually build a team, which has been really cool. I mean, because for a while, it was just me doing the community building at Mashable when we were really small. I mean, I was like employee 25, and now we're at nearly 70, and it's not just me. It's like me plus like 4 other people who are, interacting with people every day, and it's been a really fascinating experience to, learn how to work with others and also help them develop and be happy in their careers and make it a collaborative, collective experience.
So it sounds like your job has changed and morphed from like actually doing it to teaching others how to do it.
Right, exactly. And that's been really amazing to me, and definitely. The thing about it, too, is that it happened really quickly because we've just grown so fast. I mean, I've been here a little more than a year and a half, I guess, coming up on 2 years. And it was seriously like we just kept growing so quickly that, I mean, within like 6 months, it was like I was already starting to learn how to train people. And that was interesting because like I felt like there were still things I was learning myself, and I still am learning, of course, but I also think that attitude of knowing that I can keep learning and also being willing to bring on people who I know I can learn from has been really key.
This is actually very admirable because most people in that position are fearful of losing their job for someone, training someone, teaching them what they know, and losing that. So that's actually very impressive. That you're, it's a quick change and you're growing into that and you're comfortable with it. That's very nice.
But I've realized that it's not the way to go, and I was just, constantly stressing myself out, and I've realized that it's, more of a, I mean, I need to treat it the same way where it's like a two-way street on the internet where I'm like having a fluid conversation with various commenters. It's like I need it to also be a two-way learning experience, if I really want to reap the full benefits of having a team.
What do you like better? Do you like doing it yourself better or having a team and teaching them how to do that? Managing better?
I like having a team. I mean, I think it's fun. I think it's nice because I do have the flexibility to still actually get in there and be hands-on a lot. But I think that it's a better experience for our community to have various people to connect with. And, we all come from different backgrounds and different perspectives. And I think that we approach situations differently, and I think that that's beneficial all around.
And okay, so talking about benefits, what's the biggest mistake that you've ever made, and what did you learn from it?
Oh man, I don't know if it was like the biggest mistake of a lifetime, but it was a really good learning experience, like especially getting into what I do now is I when I was at the Seattle Times, I was actually on our main page, on the news page instead of the sports day one day, and there was this story about this criminal who was being charged. They were deciding that day if he was going to be charged with the death penalty for this murder that he committed. And I had posted it on the Facebook page kind of thinking I could start a debate about the death penalty and like right or wrong. And like the feedback was just horrible. People were like, why are you trying to start this debate here? Like, this isn't the place for that. We don't want to talk about this here. And it was just a very like, oh, okay. Like, it wasn't the worst mistake ever, but I definitely, like my boss was kind of like, what were you thinking? And I was like, I was thinking a different way. And like, I think that was just a really eye-opening experience that, in terms of like, thinking about what you're doing and not just thinking about what kind of conversation is interesting to you, but what the way other people are going to perceive it. Because at the end of the day, like when you're posting to social media, it's not about you. It's about everybody else and how they're going to interact and then continue to, with this viral effect, continue to share it, because people share good content. And if it's presented to them in appealing way, the chances of them continuing to share it with their networks are much greater.
You just gave me an idea, which is it might be very interesting to try the same story, just written in two different ways, and right, and seeing how the community takes it.
Yeah, it is. No, they're definitely, the way you frame things is so important in what we do. It really is.
It's funny because it's like, it's kind of like puppeteering, where and I feel like the media does it sometimes. You're kind of forced, right? You have your community, what they react to, and so this is what you have to feed them.
Yeah.
And do you ever feel like you want to lead the conversation? Maybe, see like rather than feeding them what they want, giving them a leap, like having them do something different?
Yeah, you mean like doing like getting them to engage differently, or?
Right. So like instead, I know you're going to react to this story if I write it this way, but what if I, give you something to think about outside of what you're normally used to?
Yeah. I think it always depends on the story in that sense. A big facet of journalism is being objective and, trying to not necessarily having an opinion, but, presenting it in a neutral enough way so that the commenters and the readers can form their own opinions. That said, I guess I'd say like that's probably how I push the envelope the most, is sometimes I probably do share a little bit more of an opinion than I should, given that kind of, I guess like rule of journalism. But at the same time, I think that that's just how the social web works. I think people would rather see my sincere reaction as a person sometimes. And that also depends on like the subject matter. With really with kind of that more hard breaking news, when you're talking about things like, people dying or like explosions and earthquakes or whatever, like that kind of thing, I think it's harder to do that with. But with something like, a tech product review or like a new social feature, I feel like I have a little bit more leeway. So I try to save those things for when I post to my personal accounts rather than Mashable's accounts, because basically as a news organization, Mashable kind of shouldn't have an opinion. But that said, like, we do try to humanize it, I guess, and like that's important for us.
If you were not a community manager at Mashable, what would you be?
Oh man, I think I'd be a dog walker. Like I have a dog and I love her. She's amazing. Or I'd have like, I've always thought, what I've always wondered is like, who has the job that puts names on nail polishes and lipsticks? Like, I don't know who does that or if that's even like a career path, but I would love to do that because they always have like the most ridiculous names. I just think it'd be really fun to like be painting these colors and come up with some, I don't know, Cora and Bora or whatever it is kind of thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Maybe hurricanes, right?
Yeah.
What's the happiest day of your life?
Oh, the happiest day of my life. Wow. Well, I'm not married, so not that yet. Gosh. That's a good question. I think probably one of my best days was every year Mashable we throw this event called Social Media Day. It's always on June 30th every year. And it's this really cool kind of grassroots event where we actually use Meetup Everywhere to put out kind of a call to action where we just want people to organize events to celebrate social media and this, this connected generation and this digital world that we live in. And last year's was extremely successful. There were thousands of meetups in like 90 different countries all over the world, and I was really well connected with these various organizers who were putting them together. So that was a really, really happy day for me to see, like actually see in front of my eyes, like the whole world come together and like actually celebrate together, and how the internet and social media sites have let us do that and made that ability so possible, like with these various tools, and also this mindset of, connecting with people across the world that we might not know in person is totally normal. That's totally something we should be doing. And I think that day is sort of like the culmination of why I do what I do. And last year's being so successful was just awesome. And yeah, so hopefully in a year I'll be able to tell you that June 30th, 2012 is the new happiest day of my life. Because I'm hoping that we have, an even equally amazing, if not better, experience as we did last year.
That's awesome. Actually, maybe this year, June 28th is Google Plus 1 year anniversary. And so it's like very, very close. Maybe with the Hangouts and stuff like that, you guys will come up with a brilliant idea of how to connect Hangouts in real life and Hangouts and Meetup.
Yeah, that would be that would be a great idea. We should do some sort of Hangouts on Air project for Social Media Day. That'd be really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You heard it here first, guys.
Yeah.
So we got 5 more minutes. I know you have to leave. I'm going to open it up. Anyone who has questions, feel free to unmute yourself and wrap away. Adam has nothing today. If not, okay, I will. I have one more. Unless someone. Okay, personal heroes.
Oh, personal heroes. That's a good one. Who's one of mine is Matt Howey, the guy who started Metafilter, is really, really inspiring. I saw him speak a couple months ago at a conference. And he's like in his early 40s, but he has like been doing internets and startups like since he was in his early 20s. So he's had like kind of 20 years and was one of these first internet pioneers, and like has so many interesting experiences. And just like when he looks back on all that he's done and accomplished, like he just really cares about the people in his life, and I thought that was fascinating, like to hear him say that.
It's interesting, right, how the people that really touch you is not just by serial achievement, but it's like the connection and relationship they make with people.
Right, absolutely.
It's actually the effect that you have on your community. So it's it's interesting, which actually puts you in a very good position.
Yeah, for sure.
The community manager. If we don't have any more questions, guys, I'm just really going to thank you so much for your time and being honest and sincere. That was great.
Of course.
Thank you. That was great. Awesome.
Thanks.
And we'll see you again on Mashable. Thank you,
what
guys.
What kind of dog? I know it's an off-topic question, but I had to ask.
What type of dog?
Oh, actually, She's around here somewhere.
Please bring your baby.
Definite dog person. Yeah.
She's so she's an half American Eskimo dog with a Akita mix.
Oh wow. Nice.
Yeah, she's really cute. I know. I don't know where she is right now. She's roaming around somewhere. We're allowed to bring our dogs to the office, so
That's
yeah,
excellent.
she comes and hangs out. Yeah, it's really cool. I have some pictures of her on my Google Plus profile.
Oh, I
so
will check it out.
yeah, check it out. She's really cute.
Sheila has a cute dog also, and actually last interview she was saying that people smile at her dog, which is what makes her day.
Yeah. Oh, that's a nice one. That always makes me happy. People are very friendly when you have a dog. That's for sure.
And it's actually good to hear that women get the same attention that guys get with dogs, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, hey, Meghen, I have 4 Pomeranians.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
What? Gosh, Pomeranians are adorable. 4 of them, though. That's a lot.
4, yeah. Yep.
They all get along well?
They do. 3 of them are related, and then 1 is separate families. But yeah, they all get along.
20 Pomeranians, Adam?
4.
No, Adam said he grew up with 20.
Oh, wow.
That's amazing.
I have a pair of Yorkies.
Oh, those are cute.
Yeah.
We have a Maltese Yorkie mix that comes to the office, too, one of our editors.
So I'm assuming no one here participates in Cats Day. Right?
Well, actually, I was going to say, no, we have a 20-year-old Pixie Bob cat that's American Lynx and Minnesotan Barn Cat.
Oh, wow.
And she fetches better than a dog. She goes and visits the neighbors. She's very dog-like.
She's why we keep her around.
and at least twice the size of both my other dogs.
That's awesome.
Well, thanks again. Thanks, everybody, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Meghen, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, take care. Bye.
Bye.